Hey everybody, this is the Facebook Ads with the Twain podcast. I'm your host, Ben Blackman, and on this episode, I'm interviewing Zach Spuckler. Now, Zach is a master at Facebook ads. I have been following him pretty much since he first started, and I have been so excited about this interview. I don't even think he knew how excited I was. I think it took him by surprise. Not only is he a master at Facebook ads, but he also has created massively successful challenges, launches, memberships. I mean, Zach has done these things, right? And it all comes back down to Facebook ads. One of the things I really love about Zach is he's not afraid to really open the doors and share the good and the bad and the ugly about, some of his own things that are going on. What he's going to do for us on this episode, or one of the things he's going to do for us on this episode, is talk about how to look at your campaigns and fix things that aren't working, how to pivot when you need to, because that's one of the hardest things to do, is to fix campaigns that aren't working. So he's going to talk to us all about that, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. So this is about 45 minutes, but it will be the best 45 minutes you spend this week on your marketing. Here comes episode 91. Hey everybody, welcome to the Facebook Ads with the Twain podcast. I am super excited today. I know I say that every time, but I really am excited today because I have an amazing guest. And, for me, I know it probably wasn't a big deal to him, but for me, it was a big deal to reach out and even ask him to do it, just because it's somebody that I follow, somebody I really admire, and somebody I really have a lot of respect for. Not only just in Facebook ads, but business, strategy, everything. I've watched him from the beginning, kind of, stalked him, so to speak, in these groups that we kind of share and stuff like that. So I've got Zach Spuckler with us, and I'm really glad to have you, Zach. Thanks for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Ben. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So you may or may not know this. The first time that I saw you, or whatever, was in one of James Wedmore's groups and stuff, yeah. And I was just like, oh yeah, that makes sense, and this makes, and you're doing stuff, and I was like, wow. It's really cool. So I'm really glad to have you here. So, excuse me. So Zach has his website is heartsoulandhustle.com, right? That's your main one. So he has just a great podcast too, which I know how that goes with podcasts and stuff like that. But I encourage anybody to go back and listen from episode 1. It is still, most of it's still relevant, and it's really good. And I've listened to all of them, so please do that. But I'm excited to have you, and I just want to kind of talk a little bit about Facebook ads and maybe a little strategy and whatever else you want to get into. Okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, great. So tell me, how did you get started in your online presence? Did you start with Facebook ads? Was that your in, or what were you trying to do there?
Yeah, so it's funny. I actually used to have a food blog, and I had done some stuff online before that. But my real foray into Facebook ads happened when I had a food blog. And we were doing really well with the food blog. We were gaining some traction. We were doing really well with Pinterest. But I thought, I knew a little bit about the online course space, and I thought there's probably some opportunity here to offer digital products or offer some sort of training. And so I started using Facebook ads to fill up webinars. And that was like one of my first real successful experience with Facebook ads. I also used to be in multi-level marketing, and I used Facebook ads, not wildly successfully, but enough that I was able to get some people to call me on the phone and ask me about my products and have sales calls that way, nice. Which was a total change of pace from the typical multi-level marketing is reach out to people, build relationships, share the opportunity. And I was like, I'm just gonna have people come to me. That sounds way easier. So, that was my first attempt, and it worked okay. And then my first successful venture was with the food blog, where we really started to scale up the webinars. And then, once we did that, I kind of started getting really geeked up on the marketing. And so what I found that I loved about the food blog wasn't necessarily the food or the blogging or the photography, though I did enjoy that stuff. What I found was that I was really geeked up on the marketing of it, how to promote it, how to get it out there, getting people following you, getting people on your email list, watching the metrics grow every day. And it kind of clicked one day that everything I had done up to that point, I was really geeked up by the logistics, the marketing, the positioning of the products. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to start sharing what I know about advertising. And so I hopped on Periscope. Anybody's familiar with it? It's like almost like I'm dating myself now at this point with how old school it is. But it was this live streaming platform, very similar to Facebook Live, but before Facebook, it was Twitter's version. And I started talking about Facebook advertising, and I got a handful of clients and that I was managing ads for. And people started asking me, how are you getting clients? How are you getting followers? How are you using this platform? And so, I'm a pivoter. I pay attention to what the market wants. And so I made a hard pivot and started talking about how I was using that live stream platform to get these clients. And so over time, that grew into an online course business where we offered a multitude of courses, but we've always relied on Facebook advertising to help us build the course-based business. So even in our first original launches, we were running retargeting ads. Even in our small, first few launches, we were running ads to get people signed up for the webinar. We were promoting ads to our email list. We were promoting ads to people that had been on my website. So we've always played around with this idea of Facebook advertising as a way to grow both a service-based and a course-based business. And so that's kind of how we ended up here, where after doing that for several years, I kind of made this hard pivot. I have a mentor who likes to say, zig when everyone zags. And I was like, well, everyone's going one-on-one to courses or one-on-one to one-to-many products. Nobody goes from courses back to one-on-one. Like that's just unheard of. And I was like, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to shake it up a little bit. I'm going to go back to one-on-one. I'm going to serve people with Facebook advertising and strategy. And that's what I did. So now we run a small, we're growing. So we run a decent Facebook ads and consulting agency where we help people with their launches, their products, and their services to reach more people with their ads.
Oh, that's awesome. Love that pivot. I mean, I hope you guys were listening to that, because that is, that's crucial, just in business. And that whole zig and zag, a friend of mine used to say that very same thing. And that I haven't thought about that in a long time, but that is so good. So good, zig when everybody else is zagging, that's what you're supposed to do. I think it was Earl Nightingale who said, if you wanted to, build a business and you didn't know where to start, a good place would be to look at what everybody else is doing and do the complete opposite.
Yep.
And
yeah.
And for the most part, there's some truth to that. So since you've kind of, gone back to more of an agency style service-based business, do you have a specialty that you work in, or what do you?
Yeah, absolutely. So our specialty or our focus is really people with digital courses, consulting, coaching, people that are selling, their information as a product. That's really where we focus. Now, we do have a couple of clients in the e-com space. So we're really starting to expand into e-commerce, but we more come by those as like referral or interest. We really focus on and advertise ourselves as a digital marketing agency for those with service-based or digital product-based businesses.
So when you're doing that, do you really do more than just the Facebook ad side of it? Like, do you work on their business or the mindset, or does it just kind of depend on?
That's such a good question. It really depends. So we have some clients that we work with where we do help them with the overall strategy. We work on the positioning, we work on the copy, we work on the messaging, and then we do have clients where it's strictly advertising. So it really depends on what the client needs, what they want, and really what they're looking to have taken care of for them.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like mindset and things like that, I think with every client we work on mindset, because there's something that we call ad motions. At least that's what I call them, which is like the emotion that you go through when you're running ads. It's like, today you're up and tomorrow you're down. And what about this? And what about that? And everything was going great, but now it's not working. And, there's just a lot of emotion that comes with ads. And so we find that naturally we are coaching a lot of our clients through this. And it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just a byproduct of running advertising. So there's definitely some mindset work that goes into almost every client that we work with, where we're helping them figure out how to manage running ads.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely think that there's some coaching involved. And then even, setting expectations, like, 5 or 6 years ago, you could get a lead for $1.
Right.
in the B2B or E2E space, and which is business to business or entrepreneur to entrepreneur. You used to be able to like just throw up an ad and get really great results. And now you got to be smart. You got to have good copy. You got to have good images. You got to have good positioning. And then on top of that, you're going to pay more. So, we have some clients who are getting leads under $1, but they're in these very green markets where there's not a lot of people running ads. We then have clients where we're getting $6 to $10 leads because they're in a saturated market, but they're also getting a 3 to 4x ROI on their ad spend. So even though they're spending more, they're still returning a greater ROI. And that's something to kind of be aware of too. So, yeah, I think that answers your question.
It does. And that's so true. I mean, understanding, the expectation level and then, I think I remember this. I think I remember you had a launch, and maybe you had more than one. You had a launch or something, and I think you hired out your ads.
Yeah.
And I always wondered, because this is the way it works for me. Like sometimes I hire out my ads, and I think it's because I get emotional about my own. And I'm like, I want somebody else to deal with that and just report to me what's going on and them fix it. And I didn't know why you went that direction, or if there was a specific reason or not. I guess I always wanted to ask.
Absolutely. So, this is such an interesting question because I've had people ask me who are like, well, if you know and manage ads, why would you hire an ads manager, right? And I think the biggest thing for me is that when I was running a course business, like, yes, I understood ads. Yes, I taught ads. Yes, I educated myself on ads. But when you're running a business, you have to step into a more CEO role. And so, being inside the ads manager and clicking buttons is not exactly CEO level activity. And that's not to dog on anyone that's doing it. I think that there's a time and a place. And I absolutely ran my own ads for a really long time. But as we started to scale up our launches, there's more moving pieces, right? So like the first time you launch, you're like, I'm running ads to a webinar and sending a few emails. And then the second time you launch, you're like, I'm running ads to a webinar and I'm setting up retargeting ads and I'm running emails. And then the next time it's like, well, I also have all this live video runway that needs advertising to it. Plus I've got the emails, plus I've got the webinar invites. And now I have an email list that I need to promote to. Plus I've got retargeting ads. And so every time you launch, you're stacking complexity in there. And at some point you cannot manage it all. And so that's why we work with an ads manager. But one thing that I tell people, and this is even with people that I work with, is like, we personally, and in my experience, love working with people who know the fundamentals of advertising. So we work with people who are like, go fix everything for me. I don't really understand ads. And there's nothing wrong with that. We've worked with those clients. But what I will say is that when we're like, hey, your pixel's not firing correctly, it's a 20-minute conversation about what a pixel is. And again, we're not opposed to having that conversation, but when we're talking about stepping into the CEO role, it means that 20 minutes is being taken away from something else you could be working on, right? So it's not about us not wanting to educate or being frustrated with clients. It's more like, where is your time best spent? And so for a lot of clients, we tell them or encourage them to go through some preliminary ad training. We have some that we offer, that basically walks you through the fundamentals of how to start running your ads, how to start managing your own ads, so that when we have a conversation, it's very high level where we're talking strategy. Even if it's as basic as, hey, I know that I want to run ads to fill up my webinar. And then I also want to follow people around who registered, right? Like even having that preliminary understanding that that's a possibility makes it easier to have conversations and means less time spent trying to figure out what you want to do. So, it's like the reason that we hired an ads manager is that we wanted to step into that CEO role. And really it allowed us to say, hey, you go manage the ads. Here's the strategy I want to implement. Here's the copy. Here's the images. Here's everything. You press all the buttons for us. And don't get me wrong, they did a fantastic job. They worked with us on strategy. This is not we hired a robot to click buttons, right? They managed the daily optimization and the daily check-ins and the reporting and all kinds of invaluable stuff that I'm forever grateful for them. But that's why we did it, because at some point in your business, it doesn't make sense to be in the ads manager. And then just a little other thing is that a lot of people who run their own ads, who are listening, have probably had this experience where when you're running your own ads, you check them like every 2 hours. And it's like, that's not an effective use of nothing has changed dramatically for 95% of our clients in 2 hours. And you don't need to be checking on everything 2 hours. So you end up spending all this time being like, does this work? Does that work? What about this? What about that? Should we turn this on? Should we turn this off? And then you go through the emotions at an even deeper level than when you're working with somebody who checks in on you at 9 a.m. and says, hey, your ads are converting at $3 a piece. What do you think? So those are just a couple of the reasons that we hired a person, and to give you some insight into when or why you might be ready to hire a person.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. So, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but I hope y'all heard that. So, one of the things I heard you say was, hey, it's not that you have to, but it's probably a good idea if you at least have a basic understanding of how this works.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And, yeah. I couldn't agree more. Because then you're not lost. Then the frustration levels go down. Then the expectations are much easier to deal with and that kind of stuff. So that's perfect. Yeah. I'm glad you said that. And I think that's why I hire out too, because my expectation levels out, somewhere, I don't know where it is, but that's a little crazy or something. So that's part. And I kind of figured that's where you were going with it. But I was just curious, and I really like the way you put that, stepping into the CEO role, right? Because it's hard to do that when you're trying to micromanage everything.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Well, I love it. So thank you for sharing that part. Because I didn't tell you I was going to ask you that. So
no, but I was ready.
Oh, good. That's good. So let's talk a little bit. If this is okay, because I get asked this a lot. Okay, and then there's all kinds of answers that I've heard. So if you see an ad's not working, right, and of course, I guess we know that not working means different things, right, to different people. So that's kind of a broad question in and of itself. But if you see something that's not working, what do you do? What's your process? What do you think about?
Yeah. So we like to think that, Facebook ads are simple. We tend to make them complicated. And so what we tell people is if your ads aren't working, there's really only 3 issues that you can be having. Either they're not delivering, they're not being clicked on, or they're not converting. So if they're not delivering, meaning you've set them up 24 hours ago and no one's seen them, right? Mm-hmm. We have this happen with ads. It can be any number of things. It could be that your audience is too small, especially if you're doing retargeting. Sometimes people, they want to set up targeting when they've got 30 people hitting their sales page because it's their first launch. And you may not actually get any reach with that. And that's not a bad thing. It's just the nature of the beast. You may not have set a big enough audience if you're doing cold targeting. You may have chosen something too niche, or you may have set a budget too low for the size of the audience that you have. Or the other thing that can be happening is that for whatever reason, it's just not pushing out. Turn the campaign off, turn it back on, or duplicate it out and try. We have very rarely, but every once in a while, a campaign just doesn't run. We don't know why. It just doesn't run, and you have to reset it, and that fixes it. So that is that's a more rare problem. It's usually either you're setting up a retargeting audience and it's too small, or it's a Facebook issue. That's, I would say 80% of the time, that's what's wrong if you're not being pushed out. The second thing is you're not getting clicks. And if you're not getting clicks, you have to look at your copy and your images. Mm-hmm. And it is really hard to decipher which one is the actual problem. But what I tell people is that the thing to keep in mind is that the image stops the scroll and the copy pulls the click. So if you are running an ad and you feel like it's not actually converting or it's not getting clicks, go check to see if it's getting clicks. You want a 1 to 1.5% click-through rate. It's pretty standard, sometimes a little lower, and you can still be profitable. But around 1% is where you want to be. And if you're not around that 1% click-through rate, then you need to check your copy and images. And I recommend split testing different copy and images to see what actually leads to conversions. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the second problem that you can be having. The other issue that you could be having with clicks is that you don't have a strong headline. So usually what people do is they look at the image, they read the headline, they go back to the copy. So it's sequentially, it's your image is the first line of defense, your headline is the second, and then your copy is the third. So you want to just be mindful, have I created a solid viewing experience if people go in this order? And then the last thing is that they might not be converting. And that comes down to a few different things. One, where are you sending them and what kind of traffic are they? So we work with a lot of people when they're getting started that want to drive traffic right to a sales page. And that can actually work. Mm-hmm. A lot of the conventional wisdom is don't drive cold traffic directly to a sales page. And there's really nothing wrong with that if you have a lower priced product. So we've personally been experimenting with a $37 product that we're driving cold traffic to. And it converts. We're still dialing it in. I'm not going to sit here and be like, we're making millions of dollars a day. We've had a few sales, and we just started testing this a few days ago. But you can drive cold traffic to a low ticket product. But if you're driving cold traffic to like your 1997 course, probably not going to convert. If you're driving cold traffic to an offer that requires some contemplation before they buy, probably not going to work. Cold traffic to a product is more for like an impulse buy price. And that's the first thing. Check is the temperature of your traffic. And when I say cold or temperature, what I'm saying is like cold is like people who have no idea who you are, have never interacted with you. Warm is people who maybe like your content, visit you on Facebook or on your email list. And then hot traffic is like they've already bought from you, right? Yep. So check the temperature of your traffic is in alignment with the goal, right? It's easier to get somebody to give you their email than it is their credit card. So if you're sending cold traffic to like an opt-in page, you're probably going to get better results. That's the first thing. Second thing is, and again, we're talking, you might not be getting conversions. This is the third problem you could be having. Second thing is, does your landing page match your ad? So a lot of people don't think about this. They write this really hooky, good ad copy, and it's like, it gets people to click, which is great. But then they get to a landing page that doesn't match, either in color scheme, either in copy, either in headline or call to action. And people are like, this isn't what I clicked on. Right. And so I forget the word, but there's actually like a psychological term for like we future pace what's going to happen. So before people even click on your ad, they have this preconceived notion of what they're going to see. And if it doesn't match, then they're not going to stick around. And then the last thing is you just need to check the actual content of your landing page. Is it compelling copy? Does it get people to opt in? A good test is to organically promote your page first. And if you're not getting like a 50 to 70% opt-in rate on people who already know you, you're definitely not going to get a good opt-in rate on cold traffic. So if you can't get 1 in 2 people who know you to say yes, and again, you might be like 1 in 2, that's a lot, but that's 1 in 2 people that click to say they're interested. Right? So if you can't get 1 in 2 people to kind of take the next step, then you're probably going to struggle to get people to opt in. So just to kind of recap, how do you fix a broken ad campaign? You check which of the 3 major problems you've got, and they are in sequential order. So is it delivering? If not, check your audience size, check if it's a Facebook error. Number 2, check if you're getting clicks, which means you need to review your copy, your images, and your content. And then number 3, check if it's converting, which means you need to check for landing page congruency, landing page content, and quality of the offer that you're driving them to.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. And you said something there that I was thinking about as you were talking, and because it's just, I guess, my perception of, but you're talking a little bit about, you mentioned organic in there a little bit. Yeah. So do you find, especially in higher ticket stuff, even hiring courses or hiring coaching, whatever it is, what do you feel like the role is between organic and paid? Yeah. In other words, if somebody comes in and they're trying to rely solely on cold traffic to drive all their sales, and how do versus, should they be, trying to use organic along with that to try to multiply?
That's such a good question. And it's never going to hurt to have a symbiotic relationship between cold traffic and warm traffic. You always want to bring warm traffic into the fold when you can. You want to advertise to your email list. You want to advertise to people who have visited your website. You want to advertise to people that are liking you on Instagram, which you can all do through the ads platform. And one question that kind of comes up, because I kind of glazed over it and we've mentioned it a couple times, is that you advertise to your email list. And a lot of people are like, well, why would I advertise to my email list when I already paid to get them on my email list? Well, because look at your open rates, right? Yeah. If you're doing well, you're getting a 20 to 30% open rate, which means 70% of people on your list aren't seeing anything. So you've got to promote your content to your warmest audience first. So there's kind of this symbiotic relationship where it's like you've got pure organic traffic, which is like I email my list. You've got this middle ground. It is paid traffic, but you're like, I'm promoting to my list. And then you've got, I'm promoting to cold people who don't know who I am. And it's a spectrum. And you want to dip into every end of the spectrum. You want to be filling your launch, your promotion, whatever, with traffic from each piece of the spectrum. So your question was like, how does organic play a role? I think of it as like this recycling content system. Because when you start, especially in 2020, unless you have this really great piece of content that goes viral, which still kind of requires an audience, you're not just going to start posting on Facebook or Instagram and like blow up overnight, right? you just won't. Right now, there's always the exception. And
Yeah.
it's like, I don't remember what movie it's from, but it's like the exception is not the rule. Right.
Right.
So it's like, you got to keep in mind that you're probably not just going to blow up. So you need to take your content and advertise it to cold audiences. Those cold audiences get on your email list. Your email list engages with your content and becomes your new organic traffic. So your organic traffic should always be growing because you're fueling it with paid traffic. So it's kind of like, it's this symbiotic relationship where you're going to add 100 people to your email list, and maybe Susie and Bobby really like your content, and they just start engaging with you on a regular basis on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you are, and they comment on your stuff, and they engage with you, and they like you, and they share your content, and that helps you reach more people organically. And while you're doing that, you add another 100 people to your email list through paid ads, and that brings Matt and John also engage with your content. And so you're growing this organic base by using paid traffic. And then the next time you go into a launch, you do all this organic stuff. You're going to pick up Matt, John, Susie, Bobby, they're going to engage with your launch naturally. But then you've got all these 196 people on your email list that you can also promote to. And you got all this data that you've built by running ads to run more ads to grow the launch again. So I see them as very symbiotic, but I've always been a firm believer from early on. We've used advertising. We used Periscope to grow very organically, very fast, but it really doesn't work quite like that anymore. So I do think that there's something to be said for leveraging paid traffic to grow your organic audience.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. That's true. And by the way, I was going to tell you that Periscope, when it first came out, somebody told me about it, and I downloaded it. And the very first thing I saw was somebody showing a video of their fan just spinning. That's all it was. And I thought, well, if this is what it's going to be like, I don't want anything to do with that.
That's funny.
Then of course, who knew? So, but yeah, that's so true. I mean, I think there's that symbiotic relationship, like you mentioned, that just, that it's hard to do one without doing the other. And I love cold traffic. I love trying to take that and move them through a process and take them from not knowing who I am or who you are or whatever, and then them ultimately being a fan or ultimately purchasing, right? Whatever it is. So it's a pretty neat process. So I kind of got off track a little bit with what I was going to ask before, but so how do you feel about Facebook ads this year? I mean, you brought up 2020. So in 2020, what do you think? I mean, how do you feel about it?
Yeah. I think the reality is that Facebook ads are getting more expensive. And I think that is something that we have to contend with. But one of my favorite kind of little stories to tell is that, we all know Netflix. Netflix, I think, is like $12 to $14 a month. I'm going to be honest. I don't know exactly how much it costs, because whatever they're charging, I'm happily paying. But, I think that Netflix is willing to pay over $100 for a customer. And that's because they know the lifetime value of a customer. And so I have a mentor of mine who says, the winners in 2020 and beyond are going to be the people who think about lifetime customer value, right? And that doesn't mean you need a million offers. Honestly, it really doesn't. You can start with your one course for $4.97 or your one widget for $20. But you need to be thinking, what is the average order value if I run an e-com store? How long do people stay with me if they buy my course? What percentage of people buy into one-on-one coaching or group coaching, right? If you offer that. If not, that's okay. Your average customer is worth the cost of your course, right? But then you need to know, what is a customer actually worth to me? So like one thing that we do is we work with a lot of clients, because a lot of our clients are in the launch space, is we actually crunch metrics. We're like, well, what was your cost last time? What was your earnings last time? What was your conversion rate last time? And based on that, here's where we should project the budget out. So I think the big thing about Facebook ads in 2020 is that, when you were getting 50 cents a dollar leads, it was very forgiving, because if you converted at like 1% on a $200 product, you were crushing it. Right? Yeah. Now, if you don't convert 2 to 3% on a $300 product when you're paying $8 a lead, you're not going to be profitable. And so I'm not saying that you need to sell a $997 product. I'm not saying that you need to sell a $297 product. There's plenty of people crushing it with $20 products in e-com with Facebook ads, right? It's not about the product price. It's about the cost per acquisition and the value of a lead to your business. And so I've always been a huge proponent of this, and I'll continue to be a proponent of this, is like, you need to start thinking of, what is a lead worth to my business? in terms of the value of my products and the conversion rates of my products. And if you can calculate those numbers either from a launch or from the last 12 months, that's going to tell you what you can spend. Because a lot of people, and I'm being really general here, maybe not a lot of people, what I've seen is that a healthy amount of people say things like, well, I don't want to pay more than $4 a lead, or I don't want to pay more than $5 a lead, or I don't want to pay more than 6, right? And a lot of people come up with this arbitrary number of what they're willing to spend per lead. And it's like, well, where did you get that number from? Is that your comfort level, or is that what the data has statistically told you to spend on an ad? And for most people, when we really dig into it, it's comfort level. They're like, I just don't feel good paying more than $6 a lead. And it's like, well, it's not about what feels good. It's about what statistically makes the most sense for your business. We're running a promotion right now. I was looking at the stats this morning when I woke up, because I'm actually running my own ads for it, which is why I'm checking the stats like a crazy person. But basically, we are running ads to a $37 product to our warm audience, and we're paying $24 per purchase. And a lot of people would be like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, right? Why would you spend $24 a purchase? But I don't have the exact numbers. If you see me flashing, I'm trying to click around to give accurate data. But we've done somewhere around, I want to say like $300 in sales of it. Because one thing is like what I was just talking about is we don't just have the $37 product. So we've done right around $300 in sales. Because we don't just have the $37 products. We have an order bump. We have a one-click upsell. And we're also thinking long-term. So this product isn't just a $37 product. It actually leads to the opportunity to get on the phone with us. And so we're booking calls where people can work with our agency. And so we're honestly willing to spend like $50 per purchase on a $37 product, because we've got upsells. Our average order value is above $60. And we know that we're getting people on the phone who want to work with our agency. So I know that that's very much like, well, why is Zach talking about what he's selling? But it's more to illustrate the point of like, the average person would be like, whoa, you're spending 2/3 of your product price on this thing, and you're driving traffic directly to an offer. And it's like, I think in 2020, number one, you got to think different than what everybody else is doing. And I don't think it will be long before a lot of people are driving to a $37 product. I already know a number of people that are doing it. It's not my invention. I didn't come up with it. I saw a few people doing it. I bought a couple courses. I implemented really quick. So I like to think I'm one of the first people like doing it pretty actively. But I'm not the only person doing it. And pretty soon other people will do it. So that's the other flip side of the coin. The question was originally like, what do I think about ads in 2020? Is like, know your acquisition cost, know your acquisition value, and then also do things differently. Because a lot of people would be like, well, the best way to grow your list is to do the freebie and get people on your list and then pitch them a call. And I'm like, well, what if instead of doing that, we pitched them a call right away and didn't even promote a freebie? And again, I don't know how well this will work out with cold traffic, but the big takeaway is not, I don't want people to be like, the big takeaway is to go run a $37 product. The big takeaway is do something different. Change what you're doing, change your positioning, and think long-term. Because we're not thinking about the $37 product sale. We're thinking about the average order value, and we're thinking about getting people on the phone.
I'm making little notes myself. So there was a couple of things I took away from what you said there. So one is, the first thing had to do with ad drama, right? It's, you're spending money and it's not getting the result that you wanted, or you're paying in what maybe you're paying double. If it was a $37 offer, you're paying double, right? And so you have all this drama. It's just money, right? But you're gathering the data. That's what you're doing. You're finding out what's working and what's not working, right? I mean, that makes it worth it. And so I really like what you had to say there. I mean, if you look at it from a practical standpoint, even if you broke even, or even if you paid more, you're offsetting some, if not all, the cost of your ads.
Yes.
Well, why wouldn't you do that? Right.
Absolutely.
One of my clients, she's amazing, just amazing. And when she very first started with me, I asked her, I said, what's the most you're willing to pay per customer? She said $2,000 per customer. And her frontline product was $2,000. And I said, okay, And that's what I worked with. But she had that certainty. And I think that's what you're saying is, hey, know your numbers. She knew her number. You got to know your number.
Absolutely.
So that's really good information there, Zach. I mean, I think that's very powerful for people to know. Hey, you're bringing them in on the front end, but you have an offer later on. It's not like you're saying, okay, well, I'm trying to make $1 million selling the $37 product.
Right.
That's not the goal here. Right. And knowing your numbers is crucial, man. It's just crucial. I love that. Thank you. So let's see what I was going to ask. Really, my last question was just really about, do you have, like, for people who are just getting started, because a lot of people who listen to this podcast, when they first, a lot of them are just getting started, and they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to, what do they do? Where do they start? It's overwhelming. And it can be, right? Yeah. And they're all looking for the magic checkbox. Right, the checkbox, the secret checkbox in Facebook Ads Manager is going to make it all work, right? Which I haven't found it yet, but I'm still looking.
Keep looking.
But do you have any suggestions for them or things that might help them going forward?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is get a basic education, because I tell people that there is a level of education required to play the game, and there's two ways to get that education. And one is to basically spend the money and figure it out. Like, go into Ads Manager, spend money, hope it works, hope it pans out. And the other is to just pay someone to take their course, pay someone to do their 2-day workshop, pay someone to join their paid webinar, right? Get on a few free webinars, Google Facebook Ads 2020 and watch the YouTube videos, right? Now, I'm a huge proponent of taking a paid course. Obviously, I'm a little biased because I used to sell courses. So I always tell people, I'm a little biased, but the best way to get information is in a clear roadmap that explains it. Now, the other thing is that Facebook has what they call the Facebook Ads Blueprint, where you can go learn Facebook Ads. They'll just teach you how everything works. What I will say about that is I will caution, and hopefully they're not listening in and dinging me, is that be mindful that Facebook is there to make money, and they're not big on strategy. They're big on logistics. They're big on how-to. They're big on high-level theory. But you have to start there. Most courses or things that you're going to go through start with high-level concepts, theories, and things like that. So what I would say is, like, get the basic education in the best way that works for you. And that's gonna do a lot for you.
Can I ask you a question? Somebody, this is a while back we were talking about, he's like, look, most of the changes that Facebook makes are for people who are spending at least, $5 or $10,000 a month on ads, at least, right? That's the minimum. And if you're not spending that, most of the changes that they make probably won't apply to you, right?
Yeah.
And so stop, just because it's the latest, greatest little thing doesn't necessarily mean you need to jump on it.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like that's true, or what do you think?
Yeah, I feel like the reality is when Facebook makes a change or an opportunity, you have to have the money to test it. And if I had to guess, that's kind of where that person is coming from, is like, if you're not testing, if you don't have the money to test the newest, latest, greatest thing, then it doesn't really matter how newest, latest, and greatest it is, right? Yeah. So it's like, you've got to be able to test things out. There are some changes, I will say, like CBO rollout. Like if you're not using CBO, and this is kind of, we can go down this rabbit hole or you can Google it. CBO stands for Campaign Budget Optimization. And it basically means you used to be able to set your budget at the ad set level. Now you have to set it at the campaign level. That's rolling out to everybody. So I tell people, look, you don't have to chase the latest, greatest, shiny object every time Facebook releases a new feature. That being said, sometimes the newest features are also the newest or the most, how do I want to phrase this? They're like not everyone's doing it. Right. So like when Instagram story ads came out, I knew people that were getting like 5-cent clicks on Instagram story ads because everybody was afraid to use them, or they knew what are they going to do? How do they work? And I had a good friend who was like, I'm just going to innovate. I'm just going to get in there. I'm going to make it look like native content and I'm going to crush it. And she ran ads to a podcast where she was getting like 10-cent clicks to her podcast with like a filter. And it was just her talking about her podcast. She ran it to warm audiences. I'll be totally candid, but the fact is, like, but she also had the money to test. So what she did was she tested a number of different things at a low budget and then put her big budget into making that like capitalizing on what her low budget showed worked. So I think that there's a lot to be said for, yes, most of the changes affect you when you've got the budget to do it, but there's also this mindfulness of like, sometimes Facebook rolls out stuff that does affect you, and you need to be aware of that, just so that you can simply be with what works. And one of those examples is like CBO and ad set budgets. If you're not paying attention to the rollout changes that Facebook is making, you're going to be in trouble, because they do affect you, even though you're not spending as much. So I think that there's a healthy balance between that and being aware of the newest, latest, greatest features.
Agreed, 100%. Again, that's right. And for all you guys that don't know what CBO is, I just covered that on my last episode 90. Well, it may not be the last one, maybe the one before, but either way, you can figure it out. But yeah, that's exactly right. So when things come out, sometimes it's something you want to take advantage of and innovate, which I like that. You know what I mean? But you don't want to take your grocery money to do that.
Exactly.
If you're doing that no, just hold steady. Or at least that's the way I see it. But yeah, man, that has been really great stuff. Is there anything else that you want to talk about or tell us that you think might be important to strategy or anything that has to do with Facebook ads? But you cover every bit of it.
I covered everything. You can go run expert campaigns now. You can start an agency.
That's right, because in 45 minutes you can learn it all.
No, the last thing I want to say is just like, I loved what you said. And I think that there is a healthy balance between spending money, investing money, and taking a risk. And what I recommend to everybody is that you have an allocated budget for advertising and marketing, and that you invest that money wisely, and that it be a recurring budget that fills itself up, either from organic sales, or if you're early on, because you've got that money to put in. And just to kind of tell a little story, when I started my business, I put $2,000 aside and was like, this is the money to make this work. Now I was really lucky because I had a lot of organic traffic, but I put a lot back into advertising once that kind of came through. Once I was generating revenue, I was putting money back into the business in the form of advertising. And I think what a lot of people don't do is that they do invest back in their business. We hear invest in yourself, invest in your business, and you buy the courses, and you buy the masterminds, and you buy the group coaching, and you hire the one-on-one coach, and all that's great. And I'm not dogging on it. I've done it all. I'm in a high-level mastermind. I offer consulting services, right? So like, I have the biased position to be like, go do all those things. Those things are great. But if you're doing those at the expense of your marketing budget, it's going to hurt you in the long term, because maybe this is a bold statement, but I'll just kind of say it, is like, no course is going to unlock the secret of not being able to market your business, right? No one is going to be like, go click this button on Pinterest and you'll go viral. Oh, go click this button on Instagram and you'll go viral. Oh, go click this button on Facebook and you're going to get 1,000 subscribers, right? Now, are there strategies and systems that you can build over time that help your organic? Absolutely. And we already talked about how I think Facebook kind of fuels that symbiotic relationship. But if you're like, oh, I'm not going to invest anything in advertising, I'm going to rely solely on organic, you will cap out. At some point, you will cap out. And I think it's really important to just be mindful of that you always need to be putting money back into the marketing budget. And the marketing budget can be email marketing. It can be Facebook advertising. It can be Instagram advertising. It can be YouTube advertising. It could be hiring a videographer to create the videos that go viral. So I'm not sitting here saying Facebook ads are the answer to all of your problems. But what I am saying is, if you're relying on information to solve a marketing problem, you're going to come up against a wall eventually. And so that's why, if you are going to consume information, I recommend that you be mindful. And this is just like a little tangent, so maybe you can reel me in a second. But just be mindful, like anytime I make an investment in my business, I ask myself, where am I seeing the twofold return? Where specifically do I see a return on this investment in my business? Do I think I can double my money, whether it be an ad, a course, or anything of the like?
That's awesome.
That's my feedback.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. We talk, I get that. It's funny you mentioned that. I get asked a lot about budget and just stuff like that from a and yeah, as a matter of fact, the very first episode I did for this is still the best one, because it was about budget, and because I knew that was a hot topic, and that's why I chose it. And so, but that's what people, are asking me about. And so one of the things, I don't know how you work it, but one of the things that I've done over the past year or so is and I'm not saying everybody needs to do this. I'm just saying this is what I did. When my money comes in, whatever money I make, 10%, I mean, I have other allocations too, but 10% goes towards marketing. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
off the top, not after I pay everything else. It's off the top. That's just why I do it.
That's smart.
And, I keep it in a separate account. It's not my grocery money. Like I say, it's not for anything else, not to pay my taxes. Although I guess they would take it if they had to, but
they would.
That's how that works. But yeah, that's so good. I'm just really appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay. Well, man, listen, how can people get in touch with you or what, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to learn more and you're interested in working with our agency, you can head to heartsoulhustle.com. And you can check us out there. We've got some information about the services we offer. You can fill out an application to hop on the phone and see if we would be a good fit. If you're looking for something really, really actionable around what we talked about today and you're launching digital products, I would recommend that you head over to heartsoulhustle.com/Masterpack. You got a little behind the scenes glimpse of what that is. That is our $37 product where you can kind of learn sort of how to evaluate your launch. And what I really love about this product, if I can just tout it for a second, is that it's not a course. It's not a long set of videos that you have to get through. It's 5 individualized standalone modules that walk you through the process of how to, number one, evaluate how your launch has done and pull your key metrics. A lot of people are like, I made 10K. And I'm like, that's great. What's your cost per lead? What's your earnings per lead? What's your budget? What's your overall? What's your conversion rate, right? So it helps you evaluate your last launch. And then number 2, it helps you project out what the past launch means for your future launch in terms of budgeting, goals, metrics. It gives you this master spreadsheet that we use with our high-level clients to track your sales, track your costs, track your expenses, and basically see what's my running total, how much am I earning, how much am I losing, am I cash positive, am I projected negative? And then we walk you through how to build out a runway. So we talked about that symbiotic relationship between organic traffic and paid traffic, and we actually walk through how to build that out over a 12-week process. We give you a calendar that you can use. And then we actually walk you through how to scale up your ads. One of the biggest things that people come up against is they're like, I started at $20 a day because that's what all the conventional wisdom says. How am I supposed to get that up to 2 or 3 or 5K? So we have a really quick and dirty video that walks you through how to actually allocate your budgets so that you're spending what you need to spend. And then my favorite part is we just call them launch lifelines, which is basically they're just little 3 to 5 minute audios that you can listen to when you're launching. So if you've ever done a launch, you go through what we call launch free fall. And that's basically where from the time the cart opens to close, you're like, what is happening? Are we losing money? What is going down? Nobody bought today. My tech didn't work. My email didn't go out. And so we literally have an audio for every possible scenario that could be going wrong, where it's just me in your ear. If you love my voice, you're going to love this part. Just kind of saying like, listen, here's what happened. Here's what to do. Here's how to fix it. We've got some cool bonuses with it, but basically we've bundled that up and we call it the Launch Ceiling Shattering Masterpack. And it's basically how to evaluate and scale your launches so that you make more money with your launches, generate more leads, get more sales, and get clarity on what you're doing. So that you're not saying, I want to make $10,000. You're saying, I want to generate this much leads, spend this much on the budget, and create this kind of conversion rate. So if you want to check that out, it's heartsoulhustle.com/Masterpack. And then you got a little glimpse of what the funnel looks like. So there are some additional offers in there.
That's awesome. And that will be in the show notes for everybody too, just so you know. And I'm just telling you guys, I'm going to go buy it. I will buy it. I'm just saying, if you didn't listen to that and hear what value you're going to get for $37, you probably don't need to be doing Facebook ads. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying. In fact, I tracked down Zach just because I wanted a product that he was actually, of course, he was no longer selling, and I had to, really just beat him up to get it from him. So, but he relented finally, I think. But anyway, but seriously, I'm not even joking. You guys need to go and get that. And, if you need, you want to talk to Zach, then, you follow him, make sure you're following him wherever he is, I mean, you will get valuable information. I do. I do. So that's it, man. I really appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast. I appreciate the endorsement, and yeah, it's been absolutely fun. I can geek out about Facebook ads all day. So thank you so much for having me.
All right, Zach, I appreciate it, man. You take care.